Have y'all seen those West Elm dressers and pieces of furniture that are painted grass cloth and painted raffia? And there's other furniture companies who do the same style of furniture. Have you ever thought, boy, I think I could DIY that myself? Well, today we're gonna give it a try. So I have this dresser that's in my sunroom and the quality is very decent. However, it's veneer, so it's not solid through and through. I don't know if this is gonna work or not. I have this roll of burlap. This is what it looks like to me when I see those pieces. It looks like burlap was adhered to the furniture. This is gonna be trial and error, so stick around because I don't know if this is gonna work or not. I may end up having to put this in the burn pile. We'll see. So I'm very much unsure of how this is gonna turn out. I have not done this before. It's basically gonna be a giant decoupage project. You can decoupage with just polyacrylic, and I could potentially paint that on here and then lay the fabric in the wet polyacrylic. But because the burlap has such a loose weave, I want to be able to adhere it and I want the glue to dry right away, because with this, it won't dry right away and it's a little bit slippery slidey, and I don't want the fabric to slip or slide around before it dries, because I want to make sure that I get my grain of my burlap to be straight and square on my piece. I don't want any burlap to be getting sideways and askew. So that's what I'm going to try first. And actually, now that I say it out loud, I'm sort of thinking that this might adhere too quickly and I might want to have a little bit of slipping and sliding so that I can adjust the grain of my fabric. I don't know. It's going to be trial and error, so let's see. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to cut all the squares of burlap for my drawers. I'm going to cut it a little bit bigger than the drawer so that I can adhere it to the drawer and then trim it off once it's adhered and fully dry. And this burlap is just Amazon burlap. I'll put a link for it in the description. So there's the 6 pieces that I need. So what I'm doing is I'm just shifting it so that the same single grain line is following at the edge. Pretty well adhered, so that's a good sign. Now I need to figure out a game plan. Look at that. Okay, so this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna leave this all as one piece. I'm gonna attempt to glue this on all in one piece. So I'm gonna glue this right onto the top, down both sides, and then down the front, which will end here. I'll go underneath here and go to here, and then down the front of this rail. That way it has, you know, because initially I was thinking I would cut it here on the edge and then do another piece here, but why? Because then I'll have to worry about frayed edges and cutting it afterwards. So I think this is the answer, doing it all as one piece. So I'm going to cut this burlap down here, and I think I will glue it. I think I'll apply the glue in small sections. Okay, so what I think I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start by putting like 6 inches of glue across the back of the whole dresser and glue this down nice and straight, just as straight as I possibly can. Then that'll be glued down and adhered. Then I can lift it up and continue to glue and make sure that everything's nice and straight. Glue down the sides and glue down the front. Okay, so I've got my eye on one of the grains here. So I'm just going to line up the one grain with the edge. And where was I at? There we go. And who knows, I might be being too anal about this because who knows, once it's painted, it may not even matter. You may not even be able to see whether or not the grains are real straight or not. There's a small lip here, and I need to make sure that I get the burlap pushed down in that. Now, let's see what's going to be the best way. I don't know, but I want it to stay straight. I don't want a bunch of squiggly grain lines, so, all right. I'm just going to eyeball it and pull and pull and we definitely don't want to have any puckering going on. That side's glued down. Now around the front. So this will be a little different. I don't know. I'll have to So I'm going to continue to just keep going like on this rail here and wherever I can continue without having to cut. So I'm doing very similar to what you do in upholstery and just making some relief cuts in order that the fabric will lay and go around these corners. And again, I'm just keeping my eye on these grains of the burlap in order to make sure that it is straight. Okay, I'm gonna go to the other side, glue the edge, glue these rails or stiles, whatever they're called. Then I'll come back in and do the middle, the doors, and figure that out.
Good morning. Today I am my drawers are all dry and the polyacrylic is super stiff, and so that makes it really easy to cut. I just used a fresh straight razor like this. I think having a fresh razor is pretty important. Set my razor so that it's just right up against the wood of the edge of the drawer here, and it just cuts so nice and smooth right at the edge. It's really smooth. And I'm just leaning, kind of tipping the razor towards the edge of the wood or towards the drawer. And if you have a nice sharp razor, you can go back and just trim off the tiniest bit if you don't get it close enough. Let me show you one thing that you absolutely don't want to do that I did trying this out, and that is don't cut your burlap off before you apply the polyacrylic like I did on this drawer. I thought, well, let me just see if the burlap how the burlap cuts off before I put the polyacrylic on there, forgetting that polyacrylic is water-based and burlap will shrink, and indeed it did. So you see that? I should have known better, because I know about wetting fabric, that if you wet fabric that's got cotton in it, it will shrink, and sure enough, this one shrunk. And so you can see that it shrunk up on the edges and looks terrible. So I'm going to have to take off this one drawer and reapply, and then I'll have to wait for that to dry. I'm very excited, y'all. This has turned out actually better than I expected. It dried better than I expected, and I don't know why I didn't expect it to dry so tight. I have glued fabric many times, and it does tighten up when it dries because the fabric shrinks a little bit, and so it's nice and tight to the furniture, which is wonderful. So here we go with painting, and let me just tell you that this does take a lot of paint, and it took a lot of polyurethane. So if you're doing a furniture piece that's this size, definitely go ahead and get the gallon of the polyurethane. If you're doing a small dresser, you might be able to get away with a quart of the I should say polyacrylic, because it's water-based, y'all. Make sure you get the water-based polyacrylic for sticking this, because oil-based is just a real hassle to work with. Not only is it really stinky, it takes forever to dry, and it yellows. So just make sure you get the polyacrylic, which is water-based.
Okay, so one thing that I want to show real quick on this is a little cutout I had to do in order to accommodate the drawers. So with this piece of furniture, my drawers are inset in this, basically this face frame. And so when I was putting the stuff on, I thought, I wonder if this bit of overlap here will impede the drawers. But I did it anyway, because that way I have options. And in fact, it did. So I put this drawer in to test it. It wouldn't close all the way. It would only go to here and stick out past the face frame. And that's not how it's supposed to be. Obviously, it's supposed to be flush with the face frame. And so what I had to do was I notched it out where the drawer fits in here. So I just used my trusty little flat razor blade. You could use an actual knife, but make sure that your blade is new and sharp. Maybe get a new pack of them. And then I just put the drawer in and marked the top and the bottom of where the drawer hits. And then I just pressed my razor blade in and shook it back and forth, and it cut that piece out perfectly. Ran my blade down that side right there, and it's perfect. And so now I need to do this side as well. And if you're asking, should I just put the stuff on the front? No, definitely overlap it, decoupage it down so that you have a lot of polyacrylic here, because it makes cutting it off so much easier. So now it fits flush, and I'll trim that side off too, and then it won't be so tight. One little extra thing that I did on all my drawers, between the first coat of paint and the second coat of paint, this is the first coat and it's dry, is I grabbed a new fresh razor, and I just did the slightest little bevel on this corner in order to just give it a real straight edge there. And it's just a real small detail, but it makes a difference. Day 3. That's the problem with paint projects, is the dry time. I used this dead flat varnish because it's something by Modern Masters, because I had it in my garage already. It's basically just a glazing liquid. And I mixed it with water and some brown paint. I used a burnt umber, and I just put just the tiniest bit of burnt umber into this glaze. And I'll put a link to, if I was to buy the glaze they sell at Home Depot, I'll put a link to that glaze in the description below so you can get a hold of it. But I just really thinned it out with water, probably, I would say 3 parts glaze, 1 part water, and then just a nice heavy squirt, maybe 1 squirt of burnt umber artist acrylic paint. And then I put that on with another Dollar Tree brush, and I'll show you how I did it. I'm sort of just scrubbing it into the surface so that it gets into all the low points. And then I just took a cloth and wiped it back off. And I'm taking most of it back off again. So it's just a little bit of the brown sitting in the low points. Then I coated the entire piece with another coat of polyacrylic. I put 1 coat over everything. I put 2 heavy coats on the top. Then I went back with a dry brush of the white paint that I used for the base coat, and I dry brushed over the top to lighten it back up again. There is one thing that I'm gonna do differently, and I'm likely gonna change it about this. It's Monday of Thanksgiving week, so I may or may not get it done right away. What I wanna do is I wanna switch it up so that the brown paint that I scrubbed into the surface and got into the low points or the crevices of the fabric, I want to switch it around, and I want to have the white paint in the low points or the crevices and have the high points of the fabric be the brown, like the West Elm look. So you see how the brown is in the low points of the fabric? I'm going to switch it, and I will either paint the whole thing brown and then scrub white into the crevices, or I might just scrub white into the crevices and dry brush with the brown on top of that. Does that make sense? I'm pretty happy with the way it turned out, and one of the main reasons why I wanted to do this project is because I wanted to lighten it up, because I am going to start recording all of my upholstery workshops and slipcover workshops. I'm going to record them out here. So I'm going to put my sawhorses right here, and I'm going to use this for holding all of my upholstery tools and equipment, because the light out here is so much better, and I actually have more space right here than I do in my sewing room. I'm really excited about being able to do upholstery out here. I think it's going to work really great. And speaking of upholstery, I have my upholstery weekend upholstery course, which is my beginner's upholstery course, on Black Friday special right now until Black Friday at midnight. So if you're interested in learning the craft of upholstery, go ahead and click the link in the description box below and you can grab that workshop. And I'll see you in there.